I want to thank you for joining me for episode 8 of First Drafts That Glow, featuring me, Avon, or Nails That Glow, depending on how you know me. I am so happy and just flattered if you've been following since the first episode and been listening to each one. This project has been really great for me in so many ways. I can't even detail every bit of it that has been so good for me. Each of these stories are explorations into my mind, into stories the types of stories that I love. And some of them are stories that I'm not terribly familiar with, but I'm here to tell anyways, because that's the kind of headcat I am. Now, before I go any further, there are two really important things. First off, check my notes below. There's this wonderful creature, Farronox, on Twitter and on Ko-Fi, who I just think you should check out their stuff. I put the links below, and there will also be a banner at the end of this video with a QR code. So if you're watching this on your computer, get your phone ready to scan that QR code, or just visit the links below and click on their link. Now, the second thing is this episode, I have to put out a bunch of warnings and alerts. The first warning is this story has gore, some gore, also gore, and then some gore. And did I mention gore? Because there is a lot of just gory, gross stuff that happens in this story. There's also some more descriptive aspects of violence towards people, and there is a little bit of cannibalism that happens in this story. Now, I do want to stress that this is a work of fiction. At no point should anybody do anything to anyone expecting any kind of boon or power or anything like that. I just feel it needs to be said because some people be crazy and just people be dumb. Having said that, I'm going to continue with my regular, just, hey, how you doing kind of thing. So, with this episode, I wanted to start on the Halloween horror kind of vibe. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but my birthday was the 23rd. So, maybe visit some of those links, maybe go to my Ko-Fi page, maybe throw me a few bucks or something, just to show me how much you love me, because I'm pretty and I need things. Also, I need a microphone that doesn't really suck. The thing that I'm using, I have to fuss with for ever before I can get it to work. And as you can tell by the sound quality, I also need some what's the best way to put it? Some sound muffling foam and stuff, because my roommates be loud, the traffic is loud. I don't have the benefit of having a place out in the middle of nowhere or in a neighborhood that's really quiet. So I've had to pick later times to record, and I'm also doing this earlier in the week. I think, what is today? Today's Thursday. Normally I record this a day or two before Sunday, just to keep it fresh and really in sync with a pattern. But since it's my birthday on Friday, I don't want to do anything this weekend. The most I'm going to do is upload this video and do some mild promotions for it. And then I'm just, going to eat a bunch of candy and enjoy myself. And, yeah. So, I want to thank you. I consider it a gift that you're here listening, honestly. I'm not even halfway kidding. The fact that you're here, the fact that you listen to some stories, and if you haven't, go listen to some. They're all different. it just makes me happy. It's flattering. It's great. It is. It's great because, you know, I'm sharing something. I'm putting my little babies out there in the world for you guys to consume. Alright. Anyways, like and subscribe because I haven't said that yet. And yeah, I guess we should get started because I have been talking for a hot minute and you know, again, I have no idea why I do this. Like, shake. Okay, but I don't want to get demonetized. Well, I'm not even monetized. I don't have enough followers yet. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Retweet. Share it around. Tell people. Tell them that I'm pretty and that I should have all the attention for just the sheer creativeness of writing a story a week. Yeah? I mean, is that not impressive? Like, I think it... Anyways. Alright, enough about me, but not really, because this is my show. Alright, so, this story was kind of suggested by somebody. They wanted to hear a horror story. The last horror that I did, I consider more of a weird fiction. Kind of like in the vein of Lovecraftian stuff. But they considered it horror, and they felt that I did that really well. And I just kind of felt I did okay. And this one, I'm not too sure about, to be perfectly honest. I kind of just rolled with this idea, and the gore aspect, I was kind of channeling, you know, Evil Dead 2 and other such, like, just movies that have some just messed up stuff happening, and the horror, the true horror, is not what is happening, but why it's happening to me. So, like, you know, you can have a movie where, you know, people are getting chopped up left and right, but if it's just some stranger chopping up a bunch of teenagers, it's not super compelling. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm saying. Here we go. This is Curse World. And oddly, I looked that up. It's not taken yet, so it's mine now, bitches. What? Come to me. I dare you. Anyways. Alright. And do you like this lighting? I was trying to choose appropriate mood lighting, and I chose an elder god, Ereshkigal from the Eternals, which Eternals is a great fucking movie. Again, I'm getting derailed. Yay, ADHD! I don't think I have ADHD. I probably do. Anyways, this is Curse World, a first draft that glow story by me, Avon. Every day is new, he grunts as he gets out of bed. I guess this one is a good day. Looking around a neat room and clean sheets and the smell of flowers. Hello? Checking the dresser and closet to find linen pants and a t-shirt that matched with an unnatural ease. The shoes in the closet were also slip-on trainers in a dozen different colors. One entire side of the closet was filled with more feminine clothing. Do I wear this, or am I dating someone who does? Going downstairs slowly, taking in the bright colors of the walls and the flashy paintings. What kind of person am I here? Muttering in a low voice to himself. Echoing from deep within the house. Connor! Are you awake finally? Connor, he mutters. Yes! He starts to walk a little faster as he racks his mind to figure out if the voice was more femme or mask. Then tried to remember the dozen or so names of lovers he had met these past few months. Hey, babe, he yells. You know I hate that. I'm in the kitchen. Grab the screen and bring my tea mug from the hallway table, please. The voice had a husky quality as it echoed. Connor nods to himself. Okay. At the bottom of the stairs, he sees what looks like a tablet with none of the typical bevel and edges, just a black slate. Picking it up, it lights up showing a lock screen and two names, Connor and Joe. Okay, your name is Joe, but what pronouns? Do pronouns matter in this one? Walking into the kitchen caught Connor off guard. The entire room was filled with color, and the morning light reflected off the various surfaces. Connor shields his eyes as he walks in, trying to make out the details of this Joe. Did you get high last night and forget to hydrate? Joe asks from the other side of the kitchen. Yeah, I'm just not quite awake yet. Connor steps into the large room as his eyes adjust. He kicks a small robot on the floor that beeps and rushes out of the way quickly. Sorry about that. I had them all cleaning the house to get ready for the party. Joe names... Hold on. Joe says, smiling large and winking. Oh my god. I tapped the screen twice, and I mean, it's touch. Like, there are no hard buttons. Okay. Anyways, back to the story. Oh yeah. Connor tries to wait for Joe to fill in the blanks. The past months have taught him that people will often fill the void of silence with random details of whatever they're thinking about. Well, don't take forever to wake up. I need you showered and chipper in the next hour. The first delivery will be here soon. Joe had a look of perfection. The face was right in the center of masculine and feminine. The hair was long and pulled into a loose bun that rested at the back of the neck. Wearing loose-fitting clothing Connor assumed would be best suited for a beach party. Like what he was wearing. Sitting at the center island, Connor sets down the screen and tea mug, runs his fingers through his hair, looking around, trying to gather as much information as soon as he can. Okay, he didn't run his fingers through his hair. So I had to write this in stages today, and I thought I was talking about Joe here, but I'm talking about Connor. Connor does not have hair that can do that, so moving on. Running his fingers over his hair, looking around, trying to gather as much information as he could. As his eyes meet Joe, the table in front of him presents a mug with a strong smell of coffee and sweet cream. The tea mug is taken into the table. Joe reaches towards Connor. Hand me the screen. After a few minutes, Connor starts to feel more comfortable. Joe had ranted off about how they had to argue with their bosses about not needing to use one of the binary pronouns and to just update the company AI. Joe was the project director and not the only non-binary, and the dated AI was having a hard time not calling Joe both sir and miss. Connor liked this place. It felt a little ahead of his world, seemed to be more progressive, and the coffee was apparently assembled by a computer from components Joe bought at the store. It was amazing. When he started all of this, he was not expecting to walk into a science fiction world, just shadows and variations of his own. He almost felt bad for this version of himself when he left. There was also a fear about Joe. They seemed perfect, and just the kind of partner Connor had wanted in his world. The first one in many worlds that seemed like the one he should keep. But the glyph in his mind's eye was not filled yet, and until that happened, he had to... Are you paying attention? Joe wraps Connor's arms around their waist. Hey you, are you drifting? Is everything okay in there? Reaching up, Joe touches the side of Connor's head. Clearing his mind and shifting to the task, Connor smiles and kisses Joe on the forehead. Yeah, I'm just thinking about my dream. It seems to be sticking with me this morning. Well, I know something that you could get sticky with. I was not, Connor starts to say as Joe takes off their clothing. Oh, I see. Connor was about to fall asleep with Joe laying across his torso and their erection slowly fading down his side. This was the perfect day, he thought. With just a few more offerings, he could decide to find a world like this and stay after the glyph was complete. The smile reached to each of his ears as he started to cry just before falling asleep. Joe's soft voice and gentle kisses woke Connor up, got both of them into the shower, and convinced Connor that a second round was necessary. Once in the closet, Joe dressed Connor in a more formal outfit, and they had dressed in a skin-tight pants-skirt hybrid with a plunging neckline, both in wine red and black. Connor thought this was unlike the entire house, but was thrilled to be wearing something closer to his ritual robes and goth club aesthetic. Joe did not talk much as they both went downstairs back into the kitchen. They tapped a few areas on the island counter, and it lit up in response to their fingers. And the center produced 2 plates of hot food. One massive hamburger with waffle fries and slices of avocado. Another what looked to be several strips of baked chicken with a pile of rice and a mound of broccoli, kale, spinach, and chopped garlic. Now, I do want to say that Joe said something about an hour. Let's just assume I said 3 hours or so. I don't know. Like I said, I wrote this in 2 different stages, and I normally write it in one go. So that continuity, I probably forgot while I was writing. Joe slid the plate of the chicken to Connor as they stuffed a large portion of the burger into their mouth. As they chewed, they hit a few more commands, and 2 large bottles of beer appeared next to each of them. Connor was more amused by the diet selections than by the technology on display. He would have wanted a burger, but didn't want to raise questions. Joe was nearly done by the time Connor had finished the veggies and chicken, leaving the rice mostly alone. Joe wiped off their face and fussed over Connor as they peppered him with kisses. Joe grabbed what Connor assumed was a virtual reality headset, puts it to their face, tapping a button on the right side, lowering it to reveal perfectly applied makeup of small wingtips and matching wine-colored eyeshadow, their pale blue eyes shining like beacons. Turning it to Connor with a sly smile. Connor was never quite sure about makeup. Being dark-skinned made it hard for subtle makeup, and he hated flashy, bright colors. Yet somehow, the wine-color eyeshadow with the subtle ivory eyeliner was the most perfect thing he had seen on his face. The admiration he gave himself was again distracting him from hearing Joe. And when the party starts, that's when we present the winner of this year's contest. Joe finishes, looking like a reply is required. Oh yes, that sounds perfect. I'm just really liking this makeup today. It's the same pattern we use for every gathering, honey. Joe moves Connor's face to look at them. Are you sure you're okay? You've been getting distracted more today than normal. Is the contest results, are they worrying you? No, Connor says, not really understanding. I'm just really feeling good today, and I'm just having some appreciation for myself. That is my man, Joe says, walking away. My vain and sexy man just loves to remind people of how beautiful he is. Do you blame me? Connor calls after Joe. No. As the night came, Connor was able to get the screen and read up on the world. There was a series of kidnappings and murders that seemed to be a normal part of this region. There were districts of citizens and districts of exiled. It felt too complicated to fully understand. The best he could figure was there was some kind of monarchy that persisted with no democratic development, and the normal standards for living was one of birth. The exiles seemed to be the modern peasants, and himself and Joe were part of the kingdom. He was surprised that a black man and a queer and gay people were part of this culture. He found the invites Joe had designed for this party. It looked like something one would have made for rich goth club kids. Connor was amused. It was almost as if being this close to filling the glyph offered him some sort of subconscious ability to select the world that fit his desires. Whatever it meant, he would not have to be here long. Best not to get attached, he mutters to himself as he hears people entering the house and the chipper slant in Joe's "Hello!" Connor was not sure how to act. He kept in one of the corners and just tried to listen to how people talked and moved. It had the same flavor of the pretentious posturing of the people at club. He never quite got a handle on goth clubs until he started on his current path. The confidence just wasn't there. Being black and queer put him on the outside of his own family and the social groups he was supposed to be in. Wearing Danzig t-shirts and chanting alien sex fiend lyrics made him appealing to some of the fringe kids, but so many of them were not inclusive. It wasn't until he was in college that he found clubs and coffee shops that had what he felt were his people. Live-action role players pretending to be vampires, collectible card gamers fussing over the lore of new sets of cards, the old-school post-punks trying to educate the emo and screamo generation of what good music was. He felt at home in this mess of individual expression. Nobody seemed to care about his skin. He met the groups of mystics that invited him to learn about rituals and magical power. This is where he thrived. Not 3 years after he met them, he was head of the coven, and he moved them to more serious work. He always knew there was real power in the rituals and words. He just needed to find the right keys and symbols. He was almost at the end of his journey, and he was excited. Just a few more, and he would have the glyph filled, and the power his. After a few hours and a few polite conversations, Connor was swept up by Joe and paraded around like he was a superstar. Joe was so proud. Connor heard him tell people how lucky they both were to have found each other and how wonderful the house and the life they lived was. The bell from the door stopped everyone from talking. Joe got excited and began dancing as they ran to the door. Entering the party space was a long, thin container, about 4 feet tall. 2 muscular men at either end carrying it from behind. Carrying it from front and behind. Sometimes I don't know what I'm saying as I'm saying it, but again, that's why we're here. To hear me fuck up. Okay. 2 muscular men at either end carrying it. From behind, Joe and someone that looked like... No, Connor says louder than he thought. The crowd looked sharply at him as he pretends to cough. Sorry, was trying to suppress this cough. His mind starts racing. The person Joe was leading into the room, it just couldn't be her. It had to be impossible. The agreement was he would not see her face in this task after... Joe's voice rings through the room, stopping Connor's thoughts. We have tonight a gift for the contest winner and a treat for the rest of you. The crowd claps and cheers. We have all been working hard to make tonight happen, and I must say, I was curious as to if it would happen the way we had set it up. Everyone in the room started chanting. The words were shallow, and it wasn't very clear. The glyph in Connor's head started to burn slightly. It confused him. What were they chanting? Why was she here? His mind started filtering through all of the incantations and lines of the contract that got him here. The faces of the people that fulfilled the requirements and the ache in his heart still from when she... How is she here? He said to himself again. The glyph pulsed in his mind harshly, causing him to drop his drink. The person standing next to him assumed that he had caused the drop, apologizing before entering the chant again and swaying in place. At the entrance to the room, Joe and the woman were there, looking blankly into the distance and chanting as well. The glyph started showing in the space above Joe, the blood that made it flowing and pulsing with the feeling of Connor's heartbeat in his ears. His eyes fill with darkness as he falls to his knees, the chanting getting louder and clearer. It's the incantation he used when this started, when he first got her to drink the spiked beer, the incantation he recorded in a song to put inside her mind to manifest the glyph for him to cut from her. "How is she here?" he whispers to himself. The chanting stops. Connor opens his eyes to see other people are also on their knees, and Joe and the woman are still standing looking over the small crowd of people with smiles. Joe looks around. "Connor, my sweet, come greet the contest winner." Standing wasn't easy. Something about the glyph showing above Joe was making it hard to focus and move. Connor had become used to it showing in his mind's eye, and just beyond being able to describe how he actually sees it. Seeing it as a tangible object unsettled him. He could not stop wondering if the people around him saw it as well, or if his attunement was what made him see it. Why was it above Joe? Nobody should have this power in any of the worlds he came to. These were worlds that were supposed to be shadows, reflections, and just food for the glyph to power his ultimate goals. Something about all of this felt wrong. Reaching out his hand, Joe grabs Connor's hand and pulls him to their side. The woman remained motionless and did not look at Connor. Joe kisses Connor's cheek before turning back to the crowd. "This woman here is the sister of my sweet Connor. She is the contest winner, and we will be granting her a mighty feast before we all enjoy our meal." The crowd cheers. Connor feels a pit in his gut. She should not be here. This should not be happening. Joe's voice snaps Connor back. "We will open this container after we mark her and let her feast. Once she is done, we will all have to focus to take the next step. Are you all ready?" The crowd cheers again. Joe kisses Connor deeply and kneels as he presents what looks like a black steel blade. "If you will engrave the winner with the glyph upon her belly." Unable to think clearly, the glyph in his mind flashes and commands Connor to do this. As he were a character in a game, he starts moving with a mechanical fluidity. He takes the knife and bows to Joe. He holds up the blade with his left hand and recites the first part of the incantation. He turns to his sister as she drops her robes, putting her hands together behind her back. The cloth covering her waist was sheer and was covered in parts of the glyph. She smelled like decaying flowers and rain. He carved the complicated glyph on her belly. She did not make a sound. The blade was sharp, and his familiarity with the glyph was total. He was done before he was aware that he had actually started. Something in his mind was editing his perception. He tried to recall if this was part of the contract or not. As he finished, the crowd started chanting. The blood on his hands quelled the glyph in his mind, and was showing to be filled slightly by this action, just a little more. Without thinking, he starts chanting. Joe opens the container. The smell of filth and fear overtook Connor, clearing his mind and vision for a moment to see it filled with children. All of them cowering and having the look of hunger and abuse. At their feet, 2 bodies with most of the flesh torn off. He looks over the faces as his sister makes her way in, and understands the blood on the faces of the children. Joe slams the container door shut, then takes the blade from Connor. He scratches the door with part of the glyph and plants the knife in the metal. He begins chanting and the crowd joins in. Connor falters for a moment as his voice reaches harmony. As they all chant, the cries and screams from the container suggest something more than a human. The sounds of the children yelling and crying and cursing, countered by a roar and a scream of something that Connor only heard in horror films. It was like a lion and the trumpet of an elephant with the quality of a cannon blast. After a short time that Connor could not really decipher, all the sounds in the container stopped. The chanting came to slowness. Then there was silence. Looking over to Joe, Connor sees all of the color had left his skin. He looked gray and a few years older. He smiled shyly at Connor as he motioned for the door of the container to be opened. As the door opens, we must be ready. The crowd cheers again as the door opens. The woman rushes out. The smell of death, filth, and fear overwhelmed Connor for a moment, followed by a hunger he recalled from the first night and each sacrificial act since. The next moments were more like ants overwhelming a beetle. The woman had grown 3 times her size in the short time in the container. Her roars shook Connor's ears and made some of the other people cringe as the rest jumped upon her and started biting. Her wails and screams came before and after, her biting and clawing at each person she could manage. Connor was on her back and bit deeply into her neck. The gush of blood was black and red with flecks of green. Just like the first time, the rush of energy, the rush of strength filled his mind and his body as he tore at her shoulder blade, pulling it off of her and snapping it in two, draining the marrow and licking the blood from it. As a small group was eating at her legs, a few at her groin and sides, Joe had bitten off one of her ears and was peeling the skin off her head, bashing her skull with a closed fist. The orgy of gore and cannibalism continued until the woman's enlarged body was little more than loosely connected bones and bits of flesh and organs. The crowd was all smiling and rolling in the mess left behind and softly chanting as they touched each other and shared in the joy of this experience. The glyph in Connor's mind pulsed as more of it filled than any one encounter had ever done. He wondered if he would move to a new world now, or after he went to sleep. The rush of power and energy felt like the static feeling just before the shift. He focused his inner self to the glyph to give it his full attention, to make contact with the giver and see if he maybe could gain an audience. After a time, the sense of needing to wait rang in his mind, and the glyph glowed in a way of gratitude and progress. Connor had come to understand. He looked around himself and noticed everyone was falling asleep in the gore, and saw Joe masturbating with the marrow from one of the bones left unconsumed. Something about this felt sweet to Connor as he called out to Joe and motioned him to cuddle. With a wink, Joe finished and then crawled to Connor and curled up next to him. The morning was offensive. The smell of the container and the gore left behind was foul. The men that had carried the container in were still standing precisely where they had been since they entered the night before. Everyone in the room woke with curled noses and smiles. Joe moved and goes to kiss Connor. This Connor was dead. Joe begins to cry. Waking up after a sacrifice was easy. Waking up after this kind of sacrifice was not. What is my name today? Getting up from the floor and looking around, Connor sees nothing. Not only does he see nothing, there is nothing. The floor he woke up on is just not there. His hand stops at which should be the floor, but he feels nothing. He stands on what the surface is, yet his feet feel nothing. Taking a deep inhale through his nose, nothing. Tries to talk, hears himself in his head, but nothing from his mouth. Even his skin, nothing to feel, only when he touches himself. Even moving, there's no air, wind, or anything. He begins to focus on the glyph. making sure there is no imperfection in his mental image. He was warned that any change in his internal image of it could result in something going wrong. He spent years perfecting the mental image. It was intact. Just one part to fill. So, why was he in the space between? Oh, excuse me. I did shovel food in my mouth before doing this, so I apologize for that burp. You have one last sacrifice to make. The voice shakes him from without and within. Looking around Connor, or is it Kurt? Perhaps Kane. He can't recall his original name anymore. It doesn't matter what your name was or will be. As long as you do the last task, the power is yours. The voice shakes from between every cell in his body. Trying to speak, Connor says, I've come this far. I was doing as I was instructed. Why did I see my sister again? We had to be sure, the voice sarcastically replies. You know how many get that far and refuse to go that extra mile? I don't care about any other. I simply wish to have the share of power I have harvested from the worlds I have been sent to. The lack of his voice leaving his mouth making him try to speak louder. One last sacrifice. Anything, Connor screams into the void. Moments pass as shape takes form in front of him. It becomes a door and then gains color in some dimension. Connor looks as he reaches and notices clothing appearing on his body. Turning the doorknob, the light nearly causes him to cringe as he adjusts almost immediately. He finds himself in his bedroom. His room. Not a version of it, not a shadow of it. No. His sister's half-eaten corpse, still laying in the center of the large glyph he painted in her blood. The smell of the portal he fell into lingering. The time on the clock just a few minutes after he had looked at it as he left this world months ago. A panic filled him. He was not very cautious about this last part. He did not expect to be sent back here. His sister's boyfriend was going to be here to pick her up for work soon. His own girlfriend was going to be here shortly to bring them all breakfast. He should not be here. Looking around the room, he tries to recite the contract, every part in his mind as he tries to find out what to do next. Nothing he can find in his mind. He starts to think about the glyph and the translation of it and its power. Was there something about... No. He understands. He did not leave this room. Only his mind, his power, his will. He needed to fulfill the contract by controlling his other selves, and now he had to end this him. Then his will would have the power to go to any realm and be whatever he wanted himself and that world to be. All he needed to do is carve the glyph into his own body and start eating. It made the most sense. What else was there to do? There had to be one more body to feed the glyph. Obviously, it was being built in his mind, so he needed to fill the last part with his own body. His body that he needed to feed the glyph with. Like the other bodies he fed upon. Like that container of children. The amount of time left before he would be interrupted was short. He knew he could do this. The pain of carving the glyph in his own skin was not as bad as he thought it would be. It felt like a nice back scratch, like a pleasant massage chair. Once done, he started chanting. The glyph in his mind started to pulse with his breath as the beat of his heart started to rise in his ears. The rush of expectation and joy filled his mind as he bit off his index finger from his right hand. He continued to consume his hand and then started on his left. He started on his legs, cutting chunks out with the broken bone of his arms as tools. He began to feel sleepy and fulfilled. Time suddenly stopped for him. His movements were unhindered by blood loss and the slow devouring of his own flesh. He pulled at himself and felt a pleasure each time he brought a new part to his mouth to eat. He began to recite the path of his journey in his mind, how it all started for him, how it felt like the best and only thing he needed to really do, as if he was made to fulfill some task and please some part of the universe so he could have the power he wanted to do as he wanted. He remembers finding the book, working out the translation that the former owner claimed he could not crack, convincing his coven to learn some of the spells that proved more than effective at giving them control of people and allowing them to gain the position that they had wanted. He remembers the dream of the glyph, and how the rest of his coward coven was afraid to do anything real to gain actual and lasting power. How they claimed to feel betrayed because he wanted to kill his own sister. How he tried to convince them to offer their own family. All for the lasting power to go to any world, any realm. He felt nothing when he killed them to start the glyph in his mind. There was no pain in his heart for using them to make his altar and summoning the glyph into reality for him to use his sister to finish that ritual and start the path to the power he knew he deserved. He felt nothing but pity for those that did not wish to walk with him as the gods, felt no sadness or fear for what was to come. He would walk in worlds without end, able to shape and control it all. All he needed to do was finish devouring his own self into the glyph, and he would be a god. The last sound he hears before the darkness was his girlfriend shouting and screaming. Epilogue. The funeral for the brother and sister were held separately. Joanna was not able to attend her former boyfriend's funeral. The image of him in the state he was in was going to live with her forever. What the police told her of the remains of his friends and some of the co-workers, all apparently partially eaten, and some of the body parts and skin used for the grotesque altar that filled almost the entire wall in the room he was in. She was shaking by the end of the day so much her mother had to get the pills and hold her head back and massaged her neck to help her swallow. She could not really find the power to talk anymore. She could not find the ability to want to do anything. All she could do was sleep. Even then, all she could see in her sleep was this strange shape. It glowed and flowed in a way that felt sinister to her. She could never recall what the image was when she was awake. She felt as if she was going insane. The doctors were patient with her and told her that it was PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. After a few years, she was better. She was working part-time in a library as record keeper and ebook lender moderator. She didn't have to talk to people much. On her lunch break one day, she went to the bathroom, broke the mirror, carved a symbol into her belly before cutting her neck open. As she died, she managed to write on the bathroom floor in her own blood, "He is still here." What'd you think of that? Was it disturbing? Was it gross? Did I lie about the gore? No. No, I didn't lie about the gore, but yes, that was gross. I honestly felt mildly disturbed writing some of this. It part of what I see horror as is a definite reflection of one's experience of the world, and kind of an expression of how those things leave us feeling sometimes. Actually two of my favorite writers, Clive Barker and Stephen King, have both independently said, and I'm not quoting exactly because I'm not looking it up right now, but they had both talked about their personal experiences informing what they write. Clive Barker dealing with a lot of social issues and personal issues, and the same with Stephen King, who has been very open about his difficulties with substances, and his horror is informed by that. Now, I have never eaten human flesh. I'm vegan. I don't really follow any path working or chaos magic or Golden Dawn or Hermeticism or anything like that. I have studied it, as part of a hobby, so there are elements of some of those in this story, but none of it is to be taken literally. I just want to stress that again. This is just a work of fiction. It's just supposed to be an awesome bit of gory horror for you to jump into. The epilogue I wrote because I felt there needed to be how to say it. There just needed to be something, and I couldn't quite place it. And I kind of sat looking at the screen for a few minutes, and then I figured out that if our main character died and his girlfriend saw him die, we just needed to know how she ended up. And the kind of inspiration for that is kind of like, sometimes when you're in a relationship with somebody and you realize what they're capable of, sometimes it destroys you. I'm not sure I'll visit this specific story again, but there are a few concepts in it that I think are worth exploring. The idea of utilizing kind of blood magic to make a pact with an unseen, unnamed entity to be able to travel to other realms and have control over them, or believe that you can attain this. It's kind of what some comic books have played with, and there have been a few suggestions of that kind of thing in a few horror movies, but I don't think this kind of level has really not this kind of level, but this kind of approach has been used specifically. But yeah, I just really want to thank you again for joining me. Don't forget to check the links below. Check out Farronox. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm doing it wrong, I apologize. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to visit me at ko-fi.com/nailsthatglow. That's ko-fi.com/nailsthatglow. Also find me at nailsthatglow.com. You can also find me on Twitter, First Drafts Glow, and also Nails That Glow on Twitter, because I have a theme here. Also, just as you're visiting the links below, know that there's a wish list from an organization called Throne. It seems pretty cool, and if you want to support me, there's a few things there for quality of life, maybe some cute things, some makeup. My Amazon wish list has like some tech, like a new microphone and stuff like that, but you do you, boo. Just tell people about it, like and subscribe. I said that already, I'm saying it again because y'all need to like and subscribe and tell people about this show, because I want to keep doing this and I'm having a lot of fun doing this. And just as you like and subscribe, why don't you tell me in the comments below what you think a genre that I should do next, or maybe throw a prompt or two down there. I will literally write anything. It may totally not be great, but that's what we're doing this for. I am pushing myself. I am exploring all sorts of genres and ways of storytelling, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I just really appreciate you joining me for this ride. So, again, my name is Avon. This is First Drafts That Glow, and I love you.